Good morning. Just checking all my settings are on. Good morning, everyone. I hope this finds you extraordinarily well. Not just well, but extraordinarily well. Look, a few new things for solid ground this morning. I think I have finally worked out how to get comments from YouTube. So if you are on YouTube at the moment, send us a message. Say hello in the comments, and it should appear beside me here. So I've got my little system, my little laptop with all the various items that I share during the next half an hour. But as regular listeners and viewers know, I can take live comments, traditionally from Family First's Facebook page. So if you're watching this on X or LinkedIn or on my Facebook page, welcome. But if you want to send me a message in the chat, just like Ian has done, I'm going to preview this. You see, if you want to do like Ian's done, to send me a message, he's come through Facebook, you can do so. And I take questions, I take comments, take thoughts all through the morning. So feel free to do so. And as I say, we'll soon find out, I think I've got the YouTube sorted as well. So head over to Family First YouTube or Family First Facebook page. Send me messages like Ian's just done. Let me know, where you are, what's on your mind, and any comments as we go along. The other exciting thing, I think it's exciting, that you're in the big time when all of a sudden you get, there we go, I'm going to get the camera angles right. How can I get this? Hold on, here we go, there we go. Oh no, it's all reversed, you see. So we've got, what's going on here? There we go. We now have official solid ground mugs. I'm going to call it mugs for mugs. So I think you know that, just 10 seconds, it is working. Ted, you are the first. Ted is the first YouTuber to comment into solid ground officially. Thank you, Ted, and good morning. We've got Viv as well. Lovely to have you aboard. Thank you very much. But as I say, I've got my mug. So we know we've made the big time when you've got your own officials show mug. I'm sort of calling it mugs for mugs, but I actually have a few of them. So by next week, I'll work out, in a sense, how to get them to people. In other words, viewers, listeners who would like a mug to join me on solid ground. I'll work out how we can logistically get those to you, and exactly how we sort it out. But anyway, lots of exciting things. Good morning to Amanda down there in the Wairarapa. Beautiful part of the country. Lovely wines amongst many claims to fame. But look, guys, there's a lot to cover this morning, and it probably won't surprise you. A big focus is actually the American elections. I don't think it's escapable. As you know, I love politics. I find American politics fascinating. But I think, importantly, this is not simply a reflection of what's happening in another country. I think actually that the win by Trump and the Republicans, and I make that important nuance there, it wasn't just President Trump, it's the Republicans who have taken the Senate. It looks very likely now they're going to take the House of Representatives, so a clean sweep. But I think it's a bit of a seismic shift, if there can ever be a bit of a seismic shift, in politics around the globe. And a lot of the issues that we are concerned about here on solid ground, when it comes to family, good ethics, when it comes to gender issues, identity politics, and so forth. Good morning to, as I jump here, as I always do, to Daphne. Good morning. Lovely to have you on. And Gillian, number two from YouTube. She says a nice mug. I assume Gillian's... Oh, I'm going to get this to the right side. Let me see. There we go. I expect she's talking about this mug rather than this mug, but you never know. I'm still keen on this mug for mugs idea, Gillian. But anyway, guys, as I say, talking American... oh, yes, we've got... lots of factors. We'll delve into a little bit of the American elections and why the results are where they are. And look, by the way, it's not as if this is going to be perfect on all our ethical, moral fronts that we're just discussing, as I say, identity politics, a lot of the moral, ethical issues like euthanasia and abortion, all these. I mean, these are big, heavy topics, but I think America is going to be treading certainly a different path than it was. But let's... you got this... I have to admit to Yoga77, this is fake. Some people going, what? So this background is not actually my home. One of these days, actually, remind me, I will actually take a photo of my garden. I'm actually quite proud of it. If people know a little bit about me, I love to garden, and I have a huge garden, which basically takes up a lot of my time. Vanessa's saying she wants one of those mugs. Well, stay tuned. As I say, I haven't quite worked out how. I want to make it really simple for people. And Simply Green has nailed it. It's a green screen, it is. So actually right behind me is a white wall, but I have this neat little green screen, and I've got an image that's as close to sort of part of my home looks. So it is, I think it's quite cool. Anyway, there's my secret for the morning. So I'm going to start with something positive. As I say, I'm talking about the American elections. We'll talk a little bit about some of the New Zealand events as well. But why I want to talk about the American elections is it does impact New Zealand, and I think it's a seismic change that's coming. But I thought I'd start with something which I thought was quite positive. So I'm going to play this. It's actually Biden's speech, and a lot of you will know I don't have a lot of time for Biden, but at the same time, I think this was actually an exceptionally good speech. So let me play it for you.
Can do no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature.
So I thought that was pretty good, actually. I'll see if I can get it to play again. Give me a second. Oh, there we go. No, there's me. I'm still learning the technologies on these things. You see how I can now embed videos with my face beside it to comment. But I haven't worked out how you can keep replaying those videos. But give me a moment. I'll play it again because I actually think he's got some really important sentiments.
Campaigns are contests of competing visions. The country chooses one or the other. We accept the choice the country made. I've said many times, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree. Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature.
So I thought he nailed it, to be honest, and I've actually been quite pleased. With even Harris to a degree, although she's still the fan of word salads, but I thought Biden was right on the money, actually. I think he spoke very well, and I think he nailed it. And I've written about this before, actually, and particularly from those on the left, but you can get it from some of the more extreme right as well. They only believe in democracy when they get their way. And there's a lot, certainly out of the liberal or progressive side of American politics at the moment, who still think that. You already see a lot of the excuses coming through that people didn't vote for Kamala Harris because she was a woman of colour, which, to be honest with you guys, is just complete and utter nonsense. It's the same as why they didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. They just weren't seen as competent enough. And it's not because they're women, it's not because of their skin colour, they just weren't competent. But you can see the left eating itself alive on this stuff, again, accusing all the voters, the majority of voters, by the way. Never forget that Trump not only won the Electoral College, I see Arizona came through last night, so he's like 312 Electoral College seats to her 220 something. So huge win to Trump in the Electoral College. That's what it's designed to do, to be fair. But also he's won the popular vote, and yet you've got the progressive left attacking other people on the left, basically saying to voters, saying to the majority of Americans, you're misogynists, you're racists, and then they wonder why they lose, and why they lose so badly, because that really was an absolute thumping. But I suppose trying to be positive at the start with the Biden speech, and someone's noted it here as well when I can find it, because I thought it was, here we go. I noticed this too. Biden does seem a lot more alert. Maybe they've changed his meds, or maybe just something as simple actually as he's a bit more relaxed. Who knows? So as my eyes go down, guys, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I've got all my laptop kit below me. This is how I maneuver and put up all these comments and so forth. So I'm not distracted. I'm not looking at my phone. But Biden's speech, yeah, really positive. And he's right. It doesn't matter who wins, per se. You accept the democratic result. So again, I thought really, really good speech. But look, it was huge. It's a huge win to this guy. You've asked me on this show, and I've been on others, been quite clear, I've even written about it, that Trump would win. But I will admit, I was quite surprised that he won so strongly. And I say that quite genuinely. So I expected him to win, but not in the very dramatic way that he did. And why I say dramatic is like this headline. He actually made gains with women and black and Hispanic voters. In fact, pretty much across the board, he did better than the last election, and Harris did worse than Biden. Quite remarkable when you think about it, because the usual old stereotypes in politics, those on the centre right political parties, that is, like the Republicans, are meant to appeal to rural conservative voters, men, and wealthy elites, and the left supposedly are unionists, college educated, and women. And actually, in America, particularly to the likes of black and Hispanic voters, because a lot of them, by stereotype, are working class. That's not what happened. Yeah. Simply Green has put in, I won't click to the button, but he says, am I new to this? He said, it's pretty normal, this is my reference to me constantly looking down and to my left and right as I'm pressing buttons. As he says, it's a lot of a one-man band streams that try to manage everything. Don't sweat it. You're dead right. No, I'm still, I think this is actually my 24th episode, but I'm actually one of these very self-conscious people. And I'm, at the moment, I'm sort of wanting to, if you will, look and communicate with you guys. And I'm also conscious my eyes keep darting as I'm pressing buttons. When this gets bigger and bigger than TVNZ, both because Solid Ground will get larger and TVNZ will collapse, maybe I'll be able to get a full-time producer and director on the show. So, as I say, Trump has won across almost all the states. It's fascinating when you look at the maps of the US, and remember their colours are in reverse. So when you see a lot of red, that's actually the Republicans and Trump. So apart from some of the coastal states, I think like California on the west and Massachusetts in the east, he won. And again, it's really important for people to note it was a broad win. Women, black and Hispanic voters, Puerto Ricans, college-educated, rural, urban. I mean, remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. And the one I really want to focus in on, if I can, is this. He made gains with women. And you'll know that, a lot of Harris's campaign, a lot of, yes, actually, I'll come to that comment that's just come through from Leslie. Long and short, you'll all remember that basically Harris's campaign was almost only about abortion and a belief that women would turn out en masse to vote for Harris on that issue. Well, that has failed spectacularly, because not only was there not a wave of female voters for Harris, Trump's vote actually went up with women, and hers went backwards from Biden's. So quite remarkable. And Leslie's got, I think, a very astute point here. I'll just bring myself back to the main. There we go. The gender indoctrination, I actually tend to lean into that quite a bit. It's the irony that, if, and I'm happy to be corrected, I think women vote a lot like men in terms of, and men vote like women, by the way. That's not trying to make it too much of a binary suggestion, but it's about the economy. It's about health and education. It's about your kids. And but if you're looking at the two issues, Trump focused in on the supposed trans rights, or rather, men going into girls' changing rooms, and obviously Harris on unlimited abortion, including, by the way, getting rid of conscience rights. She wanted to force doctors to perform them. I mean, the woman was sick, to be honest, but they completely got that wrong, because I think, as Leslie suggests, just to bring that back up, I think that's actually was more appealing. I don't myself think that was the issue. And I think Simply Green's nailed it too. Yeah, and Manawa, actually, I'm just looking at the comments coming through here because there's quite a few. Yeah, we will get on to that because actually this does have implications for New Zealand. But I'll just make, if that's okay, a couple more quick general comments. And then what does it mean for New Zealand? So, as I say, big issues around gender. Harris went the abortion route. Not Biden. Trump challenged the gender narrative, and he was the one who won. I mean, it's quite remarkable. I'd say you've got a lot of nervous people, though, at the moment. I don't know how well you can see that on your screens, but the blue, again, is the Democrats. The enormous amounts of money which the Democrats brought in. It's been fascinating watching some of mainstream media make a big thing about Trump's donors, particularly the likes of Elon Musk, while conveniently forgetting the likes of Google and Facebook and Microsoft, amongst others, by the way. Enormous amounts of money. So you can see the lines, even if you can't read them. The little red boxes are the Republicans or Trump, and the blue is Harris. So you can see how various companies, and these are big companies, by the way, in America. And so my main point, nervous donors, I would say, those who very generously gave to the Democrats, will be very worried. And speaking of worried, I thought this was absolutely hilarious, but it tells you the state of play in America and around the world with the progressive left. The Guardian is referring to the newspaper, and so the editor, that rather sullen-looking person there, is offering therapy to its journalists, which, I just think is absolutely hilarious. What a bunch of weak individuals if, an election result requires you to need therapy. But the second is it just illustrates that deep media bias that we often talk about here. And one of the reasons that I do Solid Ground and Family First is involved with these sort of programs now is to try, I was going to say educate, but that's a bit presumptuous. We want to put out different opinions that you just won't hear in mainstream media. And here's a good illustration of why mainstream media is going down the gurgler. Is obviously the Guardian's writers, just like at the Washington Post when a whole lot of staff left, and what we've seen in the Herald here and stuff and TV One, they are so biased, they are so compromised on these matters that they need therapy. Again, it's just beyond ridiculous. But if you want a bit of a longer discussion, then I'll follow up with what Manawa was. I'm hoping I'm saying that right, but around what this is going to mean for New Zealand. But if you want a little bit more information, you can go back on to the likes of Facebook and YouTube, LinkedIn, and check out a Family First special that we did on Thursday nights. That was last Thursday. So you can see there were 5 of us talking all things America and elections and results and implications. So that's just an encouragement to go and have a look there if you like and if you want. So that's good. I'm going to have another sip out of my branded mug. I am still thinking, and feel free to give me suggestions of how to best organise. I think I've got about 30 or so that we can give away. I've just got to work out how to do it. I mean, obviously I know I put it in a package and I courier it to people. That makes sense, but I'm just sort of working out some of the other logistics. Anyway, the question was, ultimately, what does this Trump election mean for New Zealand? Look, well, my take is he's changing, if you will, the cultural direction. A huge handbrake on a lot of that woke politics that many of us, certainly myself, have no time for. And it's not that New Zealand will automatically change its perspective. I suspect a lot of the woke progressive left here, and actually the woke on the right, we've got a few of them in Parliament, he'll just be putting a handbrake, if you will, around a lot of that cultural stuff. So a lot of the gender identity, transgender in sports. I think Trump's been very clear of, he's just got no time for any of that, winding back a lot of that diversity, equity and inclusion, or DEI. So America will lead in a lot of these spaces, and that, if you will take the fuel or the heat out of a lot of the debate around the world. My own take is it will take it will take a lot of time for it to get to New Zealand. We seem to have our head in the sand. I mean, you think about the Cass report around supposed transgender care, where she came out very clearly condemning the use of the likes of puberty blockers. Well, actually, to be fair, she's a scientist, so she didn't condemn it. She just said there's no evidence that it works. In fact, probably does more harm. New Zealand continues to have its head in the sand. Myself and Bob have been doing OIAs into the Minister of Mental Health's office, Matt Ducey, and others, and it's very clear that they're trying to avoid the report at all costs, the Cass report, and do nothing down here. So, very long way of saying, guys, Trump's views and takes, I think, pulling politics back towards the centre, rejecting a lot of progressivism. So critical race theory, gender theory, all of that will ultimately have implications down here. It'll be hard for New Zealand to ignore it. I think New Zealand will be largely, though, ignored. Lee's got a very good point here, if I can read it correctly. They aren't going to walk calmly. In fact, I will admit, though, I was expecting they would get, particularly in America, a lot more protests. We've seen that before, where they go absolutely crazy. But I think they got so thumped, they were so shocked into inaction. But I do think there will be still repercussions, and so I agree with you, Lee. The left won't go quietly. I think you'll find, and it'll happen here in New Zealand, mainstream media will just keep attacking Trump, Vance, and everything. And I will just note Chris here, because Chris has been one of my very first and constant followers. You have been in mine. There's a couple of you here. Everyone's welcome, of course. But there's a couple of you here I've been particularly thinking of. So Chris has been almost from day one of my wonderful supporters here. But yeah, sorry, I know some people might find my thinking all over the place. One of these days I'll be more rigid and linear. I think media, the left-wing media, and that's almost all the media in the mainstream, will just attack Trump over and over again. But I think he's learned from last time. I think he's probably just going to ignore a lot of the media and just push on through. And if you haven't noted, mainstream media is failing. And actually the likes of X, or as we used to know it, Twitter, is becoming a key source of news. I can see it with my own work here with Family First, be it Solid Ground, or we do Pulse Point on a Thursday, Bob's always doing his McBlogs, or my work on Reality Check Radio. There are a lot more people tuning into, and I don't like this term, but alternative media, because the mainstream can't be trusted, unfortunately. And podcasts, one of the most profound things which happened, and maybe that's one of the learnings for New Zealand too, was like the Joe Rogan show. Was it almost 50 million people listened to the Trump interview? 3 hours. 3 hours, but people tuned on in. So again, quite remarkable. But so for New Zealand, as I say, I think the cultural shifts in America will impact us here. But as others have noted, the left will be very, very, they'll find ways to try and undermine him. But it's also one of the reasons, and maybe there's a lesson in this for New Zealand, they're going to see if they can re-sort the bureaucracy, that managerial class that you might have heard me talk about before with Brendan Malone, or I've written about on Substack. That, I don't know, it's almost this amorphous bureaucracy. They will attempt to slow Trump down, but I don't think they'll succeed. Trade's going to be a big challenge for New Zealand, and I better wrap up onto some New Zealand topics. Trade will be one of the big challenging things. Trump has said he wants to impose tariffs. As you can imagine, he's mainly going to target those against countries he doesn't like. So you'll see that against the likes of, well, not about like, he sees as a challenge to the world order. So the likes of China. So New Zealand might miss out, but I still think we'll get impacted a little. And people know I follow a lot of defence stuff. That's where we're going to get hit quite hard, I think. When Trump looks to the Pacific, or the Americans look to the Pacific, they do see a growing militant China, and they expect the Pacific nations like New Zealand to pay their share. And as you know, or may not know, New Zealand is continuing to cut its defence budget, actually, and it's now less than 1%. So Trump, long and short, is going to be coming to New Zealand and telling Chris Luxon and the rest that no excuses, put in more money. And if you're following wider New Zealand politics, there is no money. So all the talk from new roads and hospitals, there's just not the money there. Viv's got a good point. I'll do a couple of these, actually. I haven't listened to the full podcast, but I just thought it was a remarkable arrogance from the Harris campaign that they didn't go on the show. I say, Trump, was he 78? Whatever age he is, just phenomenal in terms of the number of rallies and talks. He just absolutely threw himself. Gillian, I completely agree. That's my take on it as well. We will be ignored. That'll put the pressure down. Emily, I think, nails this is around, is it The View? Just a mad program. As I say, it's the left eating the left. So if I'm seeing snippets of the news correctly, you've got these women on The View attacking other women across America, calling them misogynist and racist, as I say, eating one another. Simply Green is completely correct on this matter here. So just making sure I've got the right one. There's that. Who else? And oopsie, I'm pressing the wrong buttons here. There we go. Who is? Oh, yeah, Larice. I'm working that out, so asking, we will work it out. I've been wondering whether I do a draw or people can just pay for postage or I just send them. There is so much. And Amanda's got a good point here. There are so many comments this morning. It's absolutely fantastic. And I completely agree with this one. Any people know I follow China quite closely, and I actually think that's one of the reasons why Trump wants to, and I think he will succeed in ending the war in Ukraine, because he actually wants this, Trump that is, and the Americans want to put much more focus into the Pacific. And again, it's my pick. He will deal with the Ukraine situation, and ultimately he will just say that some of the land has to go. And Ian's right on this one. And we have to remember this. We do not want tariffs on our products. That's going to harm New Zealand's economy. But, let's not forget Trump was elected, as Ian pointed out, for the American people. He wasn't elected for Australians or New Zealanders or Brits. So, it's sort of in his, Ooh, this is, can I say, and again, I apologise if I'm saying the name wrong, Manawa. The theme is emotions. Well, I think that's exactly where Harris went. And I suppose Trump, to an extent, too, was playing a lot on the fear side. But I think a lot of the fears which Trump talked to around immigration and crime and the economy and so forth was based more on reality, whereas the emotions of Harris were just sort of fanciful. And I don't know if you would have noticed, but of course she started all about joy. But there was almost none of that. And Bella notes, I just thought, sorry, this has become more of an interaction this morning. I'm quite enjoying it. He does. Barron, for those, you probably all know, of course, is Trump's, is it youngest son? God, tall, absolutely tall. But I just thought quite a moving scene, actually, when most of the family came out on stage. But I was saying to another group yesterday, I actually do not expect this to become a Trump dynasty in the same way, say, I don't know, the Kennedys or the Clintons. My pick is, you'll see J.D. Vance. He'll be the next presidential candidate for the Republicans, and I'd suggest they'll win again, hands down, because the Democrats don't have anyone to replace Harris. Because I don't know whether you guys are pondering this or not, but I mean, Harris is finished. Obviously, she's still the vice president. I see another comment coming through. I keep being distracted by comments. By the way, keep sending your comments. I'm the one who gets distracted. Harris will obviously serve out her term as VP, but then she will disappear. I don't think you'll ever hear of her again. Tim Walz remains the governor of Minnesota, but he's dead in the water. But when you think about other names of people being put forward by the Democrats, so Gavin Newsom, is it Gretchen Wilmer or someone, is it in Michigan? They're all the same cut from the same cloth as Harris. Very woke, exceptionally left-wing. They'll make no difference to the Democrats. They're still mired in gender politics. Just got Bob texting me. What's he got to say? It's reminding me where to park this morning. Which is all very helpful. Here's me thinking it was going to be a profound insight, Bob. I think it's going to be a while before the Democrats rebuild. I've seen it in New Zealand politics too, by the way, guys, that often political parties, and it happened to National and it's happened to Labour, they lose, but they can't quite bring themselves to understand that they are the ones at fault. And that's probably where I was getting very inarticulately before around that comment about Whoopi Goldberg and The View, is they still don't understand that they are the problem. And so they're just going to keep repeating the same mistakes. They're going to double down. They're going to get angrier and shoutier. But the remarkable thing about the Trump win is that it's also a Republican win. And he's going to basically be the president. The Senate's going to be controlled by the Republicans, and I'm picking the House will be controlled by the Republicans, which means passing legislation, getting his appointments will be so much easier, particularly through the Senate. So just so you know, and many of you will, for him to select people to be on his cabinet or ambassadors, for example, they've got to go through a Senate confirmation process, and that can often take a lot of time. And if the Senate is split or it was run by Democrats, it would be a very, very slow process. But with the Republicans controlling the lot, it'll make things a lot faster. Hey, a last couple of quick points from New Zealand, then I'll return to your comments. I just thought, and we're jumping out of the Trump stuff per se, I just thought this was telling, and I know it's a bit heavy, talking about dying is hard at the best of times, let alone children. But, as New Zealand continues to confront the question of euthanasia, and we've got the likes of the ACT Party pushing for its expansion, we should take a step back and think about the state of palliative care. In other words, if we're going to be promoting, well, not we, but, if pro-euthanasia advocates want more euthanasia, which they do, and they want more funding for it, because at the moment it's completely free, we should look at palliative care, which is woefully underfunded. And as this report shows, and this is New Zealand, by the way, children in particularly rural areas have been, if they're not in Auckland, are not well, they're not well served. So I just think it's exceptionally sad. It's an encouragement to, fund more into palliative care. I mean, I know our health system's a bit of a mess. I don't know what the government's doing. It seems to be one of their Achilles heels at the moment, but they could do well to fund more into palliative care. Speaking of politics, I thought this was just interesting to me. So as you know, you've got this treaty principles bill, quite controversial at the moment. I'm struck, though, by a couple of things. One is the desire for some people to shut down the debate. One of the things I've always noted about treaties, just like the Treaty of Waitangi, is that there's at least two parties, and there's often disagreements. That's why you have a treaty. So more discussion, not less. But what I thought was striking here is the PM, he's more than prepared to go out and meet the Hikoi protesters, and good on him. But I just couldn't help but think he didn't want to go and talk to protesters at Parliament. And I'll hand on heart, I didn't go out either. That was, well, we've traversed this a little bit before, but the leadership of all the political parties, the Speaker and others, the Prime Minister, did not go out, nor did they want any of their MPs and their various parties to go out. So again, I'm happy to put my hand up and say I didn't, but I just thought, as the political leader of the day, fascinating. No preparedness to go and talk to those tens of thousands of New Zealanders who turned up for the protest at Parliament around the mandates which destroyed people's lives. But he's more than happy to go running out to meet with the Hikoi, which, again, I just find it's just those inconsistencies. Very much the inconsistencies. And then the last thing, because I'll then turn to your questions and comments, moving back overseas. I saw this on the BBC, I think, yesterday, for those who follow the Israel-Gaza situation. So this is a top Islamic scholar basically condemning what Hamas did, which is, by the way, the right thing to do. But we'll see how long he lasts, because Hamas are radical, crazy Islamists. So I think his days, sadly, are numbered. I hope he survives, but they don't take well to that situation. But segueing back, I think you'll see Trump will address this too. I think he will. Obviously, he talks a huge game, old Trump, on just about all topics. But I think if we look at the Middle East question for a moment, he will basically back Israel fully in a way that Biden did not. And then you're already seeing like Qatar beginning to dial back its relationship with Hamas. It's not quite correct reporting that Hamas have been kicked out of Qatar, but the Qataris are no longer acting, if you will, as a conduit between Hamas and the likes of the United States and other countries. So that's significant. So I just think he's just going to call a spade a spade. Anyway, I'm going to have a look at a few of these comments. I'm pretty happy to work backwards. They come through, as you might imagine, the freshest at the start. Yeah, so a good point here has just come through by RP. I think if I understand it rightly, we've seen certainly from the left, and since the Black Lives Matter, which really had very little to do with, well, it was using race, was really just a mask for basic communist thought. Again, it's been roundly rejected, I would say, by the American public. And again, don't let anyone, certainly from the left, tell you otherwise. At the end of the day, Trump won hands down. He won the popular vote. Harris went back on just about every demographic. Trump went forward. It's just vitally important that people understand that. As Rosie said, Jacinda didn't go out and speak to the protests. Again, we're talking about during the COVID days. I still think that was the wrong decision. I still think the advice that we were given was wrong in and around all of that. Not taking away anything from my own agency and decision. I just think it's fascinating when it comes to the treaty or a hekoi, all of a sudden the likes of Luxon's falling over himself to go and talk to them, which, by the way, is a good thing to do. But it's completely inconsistent when they refuse to talk to a whole lot of other people. Simply Green notes that we have way too many problems here in New Zealand. Yeah, we do. And to be fair on the government, it's a bit of a challenge, isn't it, for them to try and, I think, and having been in the Parliament, there's only so much time and resource and energy that people have, and the problems we have here are myriad. Another one here about our own movement. I think we will see that in the future in New Zealand. I think the two main political parties are quite similar in some ways. I don't think they have the vision. It's easy for me to sit here and criticise, but I can see in the future, and I'm not saying the next year, but I could see in five or so years, if there's, I hate the term populist, because I mean that's how you get voted in, you're popular, but we could see a strong, charismatic figure actually sweep through and be able to pick up votes from left and right. This is from RP again. The Republicans reform. I mean, someone like Charlie Kirk, if you don't know him, look him up. Just young, knows his stuff. They did incredible work engaging, again, young people. So I think this is a comment too about when how some people reacted to Trump's victory last time. It's always possible. It's always possible. I think we've just got to be very, very careful of how we deal with all of that. He will. I'm just finding all the comments here, guys. He will, and this is going to make a big, big change. I think you'll see too, he's not going to have the same patronage as what I mean by that. In the first term, Trump appointed a lot of politicos into various jobs, and that's part of the reason so many got fired. Sort of egos met egos. I think this time he's going to be a lot more cautious. I do expect to see Musk and others get quite significant roles and posts. Right tracks here, absolutely. It's a stream of embarrassment of just how detached from reality they are. And I suppose I've been a bit inarticulate this morning, guys, but that's one of the things that the cultural or political left are so detached from the reality of everyday lives. And again, the proof's in the pudding in the vote. Anyway, I better wrap up, and I better find, sorry, I'm looking for the right pages here. I see. Excuse me a second. Yeah, I think unfortunately in New Zealand politics they are very similar in a lot of ways, particularly around the cultural stuff. And I just think there's an opportunity developing here in New Zealand. Now, speaking of opportunities, if you want to, obviously you've been watching this morning, and thank you. I went longer than normal. If you want other content, always know we are on Substack. So this is Bob McCoskrie, so the head of Family First. He is prolific. Underline that word, he is prolific. He writes several times a week, and this is his most recent Substack. Again, reflecting on the US elections, but he's noting the results show that the country, America, is more pro-life than you think. and less drug-friendly. So literally, he's just published that in the last hour or so. I wrote last week on my initial reactions of why Trump won, and so that's probably informed a little bit of my thinking this morning. I'm working on another one as we speak, but you can jump on to substack.com. That's where you can go to find my and Bob's respective Substack. So just look up our names, or in my case, On Point, in Bob's case, McBlog. It's free. You can read our thoughts there. As I say, I write usually weekly, Bob 2 or 3 times. As you know too, I do an online radio show every week on a Friday morning from 10 a.m. on Reality Check Radio. And last week I had this gentleman on, Professor Nigel Bigger. He's a professor from Oxford University who talks about colonialism. And long and short, is saying that, yeah, there's bad things about colonialism, but actually there's a whole lot of good things too. And/or colonialism is not just something from the United Kingdom. Empire building has been around in all and every culture. So look, it was a fascinating discussion, including too around free speech. Because one of his big things is and he's an academic. He's a Regius Professor, for heaven's sakes, which means he's a top professor at Oxford University. But they tried to denounce and get rid of him. And so he's become a big advocate for free speech. So that was an absolutely, I think, fascinating discussion. And as you know, there is no shortage of other Family First content. So let me share this with you.
If you're looking for news that you can trust, commentary on key family and social issues, and conservative conversations, go no further. Family First has them all. Monday nights, live at 8 p.m, Straight Talk with our panel. Tuesday mornings, live at 8 a.m, Solid Ground with Simon O'Connor. Wednesdays, watch for the latest episode of Pulse Point to drop. We watch the news so that you don't have to. Thursdays, live at 5 p.m, Political Playback with Bob McCoskrie and Simon O'Connor discussing the week in Parliament and politics in general. Plus, there's regular episodes of social commentary with McBlog and interviews on family matters throughout the week. You can watch these live and also on demand on our website, Facebook page, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on our YouTube channel. Finally, something worth watching that you can trust. Go to familyfirst.watch for more details.
So guys, tons and tons of content there, obviously through Family First. So check all of that out. As I say, we're back, Bob and I, on Thursday night for what we call Political Playback. So we'll be delving into more of the political issues here in New Zealand. We won't be so much into the American politics. We could talk about that for hours, but we will be doing a lot more focus on what's happening in New Zealand. So that's live on Facebook and YouTube on Thursday. Obviously, I've got RCR on Friday morning. As I say, though, you can always jump on to any of our pages and find previous content. So there's replays of all these solid grounds, a political playback. Reality Check, as I say, has those replays as well if you want to get the nuance, because I can see some comments about Nigel Bigger and the notion of colonialism. Again, a lot of nuance. It's not like, oh, things are wonderful, but he's just pointing out a whole lot of other elements which are worth considering. So guys, enjoy the rest of the morning. I need to head on off. Lovely to have you on board. Lovely to have YouTube finally connected. Loving all the comments. And as I say, by next week I will work out how to get these mugs to you wonderful viewers who are interested. But you have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of the week.